So in Halo 3, there is a very hidden secret cutscene room that isn't actually accessible in the game. And for years, people have been asking me to somehow get in this room. So can I do it? Let's give it a shot! So the problem with this room is that it's not actually accessible by normal means. It's the Shipmaster's command and it's only seen in cutscenes. There are two missions, Floodgate and the Ark, that contain this room. But the mission The Ark only contains this room at the beginning cutscene before the mission even starts, and then it deloads once you hit the first load point. So getting to this room on the Ark would not be a possibility. But that leaves us with Floodgate. On this mission, the room is actually loaded in before you complete the mission because it's part of the end cutscene. So in order to save resources, the developers of Halo 3, Bungie, used a little sneaky system. They would put areas that were staged for cutscenes in the map somewhere on the map, usually below it or in it, in order to save resources. But this means that some of the rooms they put in the game are actually possible to get to. And that includes this famous cutscene room. So how would we get into a room that isn't normally accessible? Well, we'd have to use a phantom. But before we even get to that and I explain the technical ins and outs of what I'm going to do, there are some triggers on this mission and some things that you have to take care of in order to set this all up. First, you have to play from the mission start. This is not optional. You need to use the second phantom for this trick, and it doesn't actually spawn in if you go from Rally Point Bravo. From the start of the mission, you need to make sure that you're hitting every single load zone and checkpoint applicable. If you skip one or for some reason don't load one of the regular load zones or you go too fast, the second phantom that is supposed to fly in won't actually fly in. We'll need to use this phantom to get out of the map. I'm using the Acrophobia skull for this trick, which I know is rare, but for this, it actually doesn't make that much of a difference, it's just really helpful. In case you haven't played Halo in a while, the Acrophobia skull is a skull that was introduced in 2020 that allows you to fly in-game. But once you get to the overlay of the drop pod elites coming in to fight the Flood, you then need to make sure that you're going and picking up a sword from this area. You can get an energy sword from the elevator just above this area, or you can kill one of these elites and they will drop one. I needed to pick up the sword in order to beat this phantom into a location to use later. So now that I had my tool, I just needed to proceed the mission and hit the load point just above the switch to the gate. Then, if I did everything correctly, the phantom would come in. From this point, I then had to fly into the phantom and stick one of the elites on a turret. I needed to ride this phantom all the way to the edge of the map, and then once I hit the barrier, get on the turret so that I was out of the map. But staying in the phantom without being on a turret is difficult because it's moving really fast and you're sliding everywhere. But if you do this correctly, the phantom will go outside of the map and then hit a wall and stop. If this happens, you can get off the turret, hold back, and jump, and you will stay in the phantom. The material at the base of the turret isn't actually solid, so if you don't jump back into the phantom, you'll actually fall right through the floor. Okay, so remember earlier when I was talking about the technical aspects of the phantom and how we talk about those later? Well, later is now. So in Halo 3, maps get loaded into sections. This is obviously to save resources when an area is being unused. So when one section loads in, usually a previous section deloads completely. And on the mission Floodgate, the area where the drop pod elites come in is the area that's deloaded. It deloads once you go down the hole at the end of the mission and then hit a load point. Well, in order to make sure that these rooms were truly hidden, Bungie would spawn in the cutscene rooms into a deloaded section when the next section loads in. So technically the location of this room is right where I'm floating in the air, about here. So let's talk about why we need the phantom. Well, these two sections of the mission actually overlap where this cutscene room is. If you take the phantom up and out to the exact location where the room spawns in, you can actually get into it. But the phantom has a secondary purpose. It's going to be our main tool in getting in this room. So this phantom is normally scripted to deload once it exits the map. It'll just disappear completely. And one of the weird effects that comes from that is if a player gets on a turret, it actually collapses the phantom. If you can manage to get the phantom all the way to the exact coordinates of where the room is, you can get on the phantom's turret while another person is hitting the load zone and you will be in the deloaded space that the room normally spawns in. So now that I had this phantom outside of the map, I needed to make sure that I stayed in it or else it would drift away. I was using the energy sword to move it through the air. But then I ran into my first problem. I destroyed the phantom. I would need to restart the mission and get this all set up again because I didn't have the appropriate skulls on it. In Halo 3, the tilt skull makes enemies more powerful, and this includes vehicles. If you have this skull on, the Phantom is essentially invincible, but I didn't. Before I actually destroyed the Phantom, I had been hitting it with a sword for about 5 minutes and only made it about 7 meters. This time around, I was going to try to find a brute shot to expedite this process. If I continued using exclusively the energy sword, this was going to take literal hours just to move the Phantom into the correct position. But now that I had a brute shot onto this Phantom, I ran into another problem, which is I didn't know where to really shoot it, because if I hit too close to the turret, I would break the turret off and not be able to do this glitch. I found that the most effective way to move this Phantom without hurting myself was by crouching on the back end of the Phantom and then shooting underneath the barrier that exists in the middle of the Phantom. This was moving the Phantom at pretty good speeds and wasn't hurting the elite to the right. Now that I had the method down, I needed to get the Phantom back into the map. And you might be asking yourself, well, if you just got out of the map with the Phantom, why are you going back in? And that's a good question. So I need to take the Phantom to this specific ledge on Floodgate. I need to raise it up to a level that I can walk onto the Phantom. Because the spot that I need to take the Phantom is technically outside of the map, I have to first break what is called an elastic barrier in order to have out of the map qualities. Doing this would allow me to take the Phantom further outside of the map without the elasticity that I had in my character model previously. The reason that it's called an elastic barrier is because it sucks you back into the map so that you go into the playable area. So now that I was lined up with this ledge with the Phantom, I just needed to hit it up, and moving it with an energy sword is really slow. So I came up with a method to move it even faster. I would shoot 2 brute shots at the ceiling, which would then take me to no health. Then I would switch to my energy sword and continue hitting. Once my health regenerated, I would pull out the brute shot again and shoot 2 more shots. Well, this method ended up working a little bit too well. I was using my second player outside of the Phantom to check on the positioning. But because I was looking at another screen, I didn't realize that I hit the elastic barrier and it pushed me out of the Phantom entirely. In Halo 3, Phantoms have a mechanic where if someone is not on or in the vehicle, they will drift away. And because I fell out of this just above the elastic barrier, I had no way to get back in this Phantom, and it drifted all the way back to its natural position. So that meant that after an hour of doing this, I would have to restart again. Obviously, I haven't done this yet, but it's Friday. I'm supposed to release this video tomorrow. Forget the editing. Haven't even hit this yet. Hoping this goes smoothly because it is 6 in the morning right now. What I do for you guys. But I love you. I love you all. So in order to get this video done on time, I had to queue up very early the next morning. But I ran into an issue that would not go away. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I could not get a single brute shot to spawn in on this mission. I think it's somewhat RNG based whether or not certain floods drop the brute shot, but there should be at least one on the mission. And after restarting the mission 8 separate times, I still wasn't getting a brute shot. Shouldn't there be a brute shot right here? Well, I kind of need that, so we'll see what I can pull out. I'm not seeing any though. At this point, there was other weird stuff that was happening with my game, like this gravity hammer swing with no gravity hammer around. Who the hell I just heard a hammer swing. Why is there no brute shot? So I decided to check all the skulls that I had on to make sure that something wasn't amiss. And then I came to the conclusion that I was messing something up. I had to have been something up. I think I might have been hitting the triggers too quickly and overlapping certain load sections at the same time, thus breaking the normal spawning sequence and therefore the game. This was also preventing the second Phantom from coming in. But after 9 resets, I was able to get it to spawn. There we go. Couldn't find a brute shot, but that's okay. While I wasn't able to find a brute shot, I decided to use a gravity hammer to move the Phantom instead. Damn it. But I discovered that using the gravity hammer actually unlodges the Phantom from the wall and allows it to fly on its intended path where it eventually despawns. So I had to rule out using the gravity hammer entirely. But then I ran into my next issue, which was the Phantom was not getting stuck on the wall at all. But luckily, after 5 more resets, it finally worked again. But this time, I didn't have a brute shot, so I would have to figure out a method to do this quicker. I needed to move this Phantom at fast enough rates so that I wasn't doing this for hours. Okay, we're back in business. It's slow as hell because I couldn't find a brute shot, but I don't care. The thing that sucks about this is I can't really do anything else. I have to just keep mashing this button. I can't really, look at anything. I don't know how to get the brute shot, though. That one time it showed up, I don't know how it got there. At this point, I had an idea. My idea was to have the second player fly out onto the Phantom to prevent it from moving. Then, I would get out of the Phantom, get on top of it, and then throw grenades in the trajectory of where I wanted the Phantom to go. I would bounce them off the top so they exploded just above it. Okay, so I have swapped the positions of the two players, and I've figured out it's more effective to just get on top of the Phantom and throw grenades. So I'm saving hella time now. I need to go back down and get in. So now that my Phantom was in position yet again, I was ready to hit it up. But then I made the same mistake that I made the first time. Using the second player to watch my Phantom positioning, I fell out again. And in my desperate attempts to save this Phantom, I threw a spike grenade and it killed me. So I reset this and spent another 30 minutes setting this up. And you'll never guess what happened next. I did it again. At this point, I had already invested 3 hours. And I'd failed this like 10 separate times. I just couldn't do it. Nothing was working on this day. Gotta give up? Okay, so I failed this twice. The cost of about 3 hours. Today is a new day, and hopefully that new day comes with new results. Oh look, a brute shot. Okay, looking good already. This is happening in record time. The stars were finally aligning. My brute shot spawned in. I was able to move the Phantom in record time. I was in the position near the building that I needed to be in just 20 minutes. So the next step in this was getting the second player outside of the map and into the Phantom. We needed that player to lose elasticity. Then I would get out of the map to lose elasticity as well and also get in the Phantom. Remember, I need to have that second player stay in the Phantom so it doesn't drift away. But this part was going to be the hardest step in this entire challenge, and not for the reason you would think. I need your help. As you well know, once you get to this part of the building on Floodgate, the elastic barrier constantly tries to push you out of it. This trick. So this part would require 2 players playing at the same time. I just need you to hold one key. And I was actually recording this alone, so that meant that I was using one laptop to play with one player and my computer to play with the other. And the only person I had to help me was my girlfriend, who doesn't play video games at all. But luckily, there are corners in the Phantom that if you just hold back or forward, you stay in that position. All she would need to do is just hold the S key. Okay, hold on. Could she do it? It turns out, yes. And she asked for 15% of this video for holding the S key. Not happening. Fired from the Shilt show. This clip is the best I could do. The star of the Shilt show is my girlfriend. But finally, I was on to the next step. Okay, so now I have to get out of the map, using that player to keep the Phantom in place. So now we need to break the elastic barrier. You need to follow this exact route that goes on top of the buildings in between some of these different structures. Then there will be a little ledge that will drop down. From here, if you look to the right, go straight forward until you're 10 to 15 feet past the end of the wall. There's a giant pit to the left that you could fall in if you do this incorrectly. But once you're far enough outside of the barrier, you can go in a straight line towards the other side where near the Phantom is. Okay, I'm out of the map now. Then you can just walk down the ramp right into the Phantom. Okay, so now I have to turn on pan cam. In order to position my Phantom to eventually overlap into the room, I would need to go to the exact coordinates where it was. And in Halo the Master Chief Collection, you can turn on pan cam if you have a controller. LB, RB, left stick in, A, D-pad up. Activating pan cam puts in-game coordinates on your screen. But now I would need to hit this Phantom all the way to the correct coordinates. So now I need to go to X minus 14, Y minus 9, Z plus 6. So the coordinates on the top left corner of your screen indicate the first X-axis, and then the Y-axis, and then the Z-axis. The X and Y-axis are simply just the location on the map where you are, and the Z is the height in which you are. All of these numbers are on the left side of the slash. The right number on the slash, I'm pretty sure, is the angle trajectory that your character model is looking. But nearly 40 minutes later, I almost had this Phantom in the correct position. And then I realized the X coordinate was not -14, but +14, so I was in the wrong spot entirely. I went to the wrong spot. I was headed in the wrong direction. So, while I had one player in the Phantom, I moved it outside of the Phantom using plasma grenades. But then I decided it would probably be a good idea if I went to the exact location in person and flew to it, so that way I knew the exact reference point. But in my attempt to get to the exact spot that I needed to be for the reference point, I accidentally got sucked back into the map. So I lost all elasticity. And the worst part, I didn't notice that my Phantom had completely drifted back into the map as well. I was 4 hours into this and 90 minutes into the session. Once again, I just decided to call it quits. Defeat. But people have been asking me to get to this room for years now. And it's been on my list. Trust me, it's been on my list. I didn't want this litany of problems to muddy my entire opinion of doing this trick. I still wanted to pull this off, and I was still determined. So the next day, I decided to enlist the help of a friend. And less than an hour into this, we were already in the position needed for the Phantom. We just needed to turn on PanCam and get to the exact coordinates, and we were ready to do this. LB, RB, left stick in, A, D-pad up.
I'm getting nothing. Dude, what the hell?
I don't get it. But for whatever reason, we found out that if you are not on the same IP address or connection as another player, you can't, for whatever reason, activate PanCam. And I was definitely not going to be able to get to the exact right position without coordinates. So I tabled this again for another day. Fifth time's a charm. The PanCam actually worked this time, so I'm just going to play through. No, it's normal. Brute shot, finally. And he fell off the edge. After I did this successfully, it took me another hour to get it into position, but I was finally ready. I just needed to make some final movement tweaks. And then when I was trying to adjust my Phantom slightly, I shot too close to the turret and broke it off. So I would have to do this again. So if you're not familiar with what the sunk cost fallacy is, basically it means that when a person has invested a lot of time and or money into something, it's irrational for them to keep going in the hopes that they will get success. Basically, it's the mantra, I've come so far, I can't stop now. Well, I don't believe in the sunk cost fallacy. I had already invested 6 hours into this, and I wasn't going to stop until it was done. No one cares if I had been working on this for 6 hours with nothing to show for it because you wouldn't see it anyways. And just 30 minutes later, I was in the final position to pull this off. I needed the second player to progress through the hole, and when they hit the exact load zone, I would get on the Phantom's turret and it would drop into loaded space. In Halo 3, you can get stuck in this loaded space if a person is breaking off the turret as they're falling while another person hits a load zone that deloads that section of the mission. And what I didn't realize is that there's a checkpoint right before this load zone, so I was golden. I actually got a checkpoint, I can't believe it. Now was the moment of truth. Could I actually pull this off? I think I might have done it successfully. So now that I was in this deloaded space, I needed my second player to progress through the mission and hit the next load zone that triggers the room to spawn in. Then, if they died, they would spawn in the room. Come on. Yes! Oh, I spawned in the room. Wait, how am I going to get off this? And at this point, I realized I did this backwards. The computer that I was recording with should have been the player that was proceeding through the mission, not the person getting stuck in the load space. The person that gets stuck in the load space cannot move, cannot die, cannot do anything. So I would need to swap the players and do this again. Okay, so I didn't think about this, but I actually can't see anything because I'm stuck in a load state on the other player. So in order to explore this room, I have to have the other player come out of the map again. And then we're going to switch positions and I'm going to go down the hole. Okay, I think I did it again. Boom! I'm in the room. Let's go. What, there's a crate there? That was weird. I don't know if that was supposed to be in there. But at long last, I'm finally here. That only took like 5 hours of mistakes. Cups. Looks like they loaded this over the other section because this is one of the doors, and they even have the fire exit sign on this, so they obviously expected no one to ever get here. Looks so cool. I mean, this is on some missions, but it's completely infected by the flood. This is before it actually gets infected. This is the graphic that they look on when they drive their ship. It's huge. It's too much. What is this actually a diagram of? Is this something that was supposed to be in the game? Did they basically stole the inspiration for jackal shields. You can see there's actually a very thin layer of glass above this. It's not even a true hologram. Is this door open? No. Let's look at the upper region up here. Is there a skull? No. They should have put one up here, though. That would have been insane. It's beautiful. It's a shame it takes so much to get here. Center column's cool. Oh, shit. Okay, I can't get out. I was a little scared. I might get stuck. Nothing that I recognize. Anything different? No. I like these 3 posts. Oh, there's an arrow pointing up. Huh. I love this carpet, though. I never noticed this is literally carpet. Did you guys notice that? Ship command is literally using carpet. Oh, I'm glad I stuck in here for a couple more seconds to see that detail. Yeah, it is carpet. Huh. So there it is, guys. Halo 3's most famous, secret, hidden, completely out of the map, can't access it room. They're done for ya.